Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do some rainy day work. It's been raining pretty hard out here on the farm, so we're going to go inside and we're going to do some work on the rear shock on my bike. The rear shock is a Rockshox Deluxe Select air can, and we're going to do the 50-hour service on it because it's way overdue. And providing you can't go out and ride in the wet today, it's going to make it worth it for the next day that it's nice out to have that suspension buttery smooth. Stick with me, let's have some fun, and we'll see how it goes. So the first thing I've done is I've taken off the rear wheel. I did that so that way there's not extra pressure pushing down on this linkage once I remove the shock. The linkage here is the Maestro floating pivot that Giant makes, and it's made out of carbon fiber. So I was just trying to prevent any extra weight of it leaning up against the bike itself. Don't want anything to crack or get damaged while I'm doing the work. It's best to be safe if you have a way to do it. Make it a little safer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the pressure reading on the rear shock and see what our pressure is, write it down, so that way when we're done we can pump it right back up to the same pressure and we're good to go. We don't really have to mess around with getting our sag setting at all anymore. So we're going to hop right into it and get going. There we go, and it looks like we have 150, 60, 75, 175 psi in there right now. So we just want to remember that for when we go to refill the bike with air in that back shock. And you want to get all the air out of your shock before you take it open. There's a risk of explosion if there's air in it. So we're going to go one more and take the actual valve out of the Schrader core over here. I'm just going to take the Schrader valve out. That way I know nothing's going to be holding any air in there, and it might make it a little bit easier for that shaft to go up and down. So that's it. Okay, so what I'm doing is I have this crescent wrench in one hand as a holdback on the, I guess, drivetrain side of the bike, and then I have an Allen key on the other side, and we're going to loosen the bolt that holds the bottom of the shock. There we go. Might need a little persuasion if you haven't done it before. But that's my bolt. It's just a through bolt on this Giant Trance. Anything Giant with a Maestro system is going to have this through bolt. Has a couple little spacers in there too. They're going to be a blast to put back on. The whole shock slides right out. Now we're ready to do the service on it. Okay, so this shock does not have the little nipple that comes out the top of it. This is what's called a trunnion mount shock. So I took a towel, I put it in a vise, and then I was able to get it by hand to turn and start to break loose. Just be really careful when you do this. You do not want to crush the top cap. You can use something like that, but in this case this one didn't work very well. I would recommend getting one with cloth and not a rubber strap wrench. I use this most of the time for the B vent on my pellet stove, so I had it laying around, but you can get this by hand. It just takes a good little bit of oomph behind it. And yeah, so it's loose now. So we'll take her inside and we'll get ready to do the service. Before we end up spinning this bottom cup off the top cap, we're going to stick just a paper towel through the eyelet down here, because sometimes this little section can shoot back because there is still some pressure in there even though we took the Schrader core out. So here we go. This is just another safety precaution. All about safety. Safety first. If you're having trouble getting the body off of the top here, make sure that you're back far enough. See, I got it now, but make sure you're back far enough where you can see where the threads kind of stop right there. And what you can do is you can just push, put one hand on the bottom of the shaft and then take your other hand and push as hard as you can to get this thing back, because it's going to want to go back up. It's negative and positive pressure working. It's all part of it. That's normal for the shock and for what's going on. So we can take this off, get the O-ring off, and then we can slide this the rest of the way off. See how it keeps wanting to go back up? There we go. There's your shock internals. As you can. I had never taken this shock apart, so slide that little O-ring down, and then you can see looks like I have 2 bottomless tokens already installed in this shock. And the shocks worked really well for me. This is technically Giant's tune on a Giant Trance from 2020, and yeah, that's pretty cool. I had no idea what was in there or what wasn't in there. Sometimes it's pretty cool to take apart your stuff and see what's actually going on inside. So yeah, those are those are regular tokens in there. There's 2 of them stacked up. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and slide this little cage right off. Put that on the side for later. And then we're going to come up in here. We're going to start taking some of these gaskets out. So this is the first gasket that comes out. Okay. So if you don't have a standard pick, this is going to be really hard to get out. This is right under the previous wiper we just took out, and then we have another little rubber wiper as well. So if you don't have a pick handy, but you do have a pair of nail trimmers, just take the file end, and this little pick right here is going to be perfect to get you your 2 little wipers and your spacer right out. So handy little hack. Thank you to Kathleen for playing MacGyver today. Just want to spray some of the dirt and debris out of there. Use isopropyl rubbing alcohol, or you can just use your, I have a can of this, so I might as well use it. I'll just spray it around where we were taking those rubber spacers and flanges, or whatever you want to call them out, grommets. The idea is you want everything to be nice and clean when you go back to putting it all back together. And this stuff evaporates really, really well, so it'll stay nice and clean for us. Well, we'll go back inside. And once we've done all that, we're just going to go and wipe out the inside. Inside of the can's nice and clean. Just wipe the couple little grooves that we just did. Make sure no dirt. See, I got a little bit of dirt out of there. Now we can start putting the rubbers back in. So we're going to start with the one furthest in, and we'll grease these afterwards. So this guy goes in. Okay, it's in. Now you want to push it down just a little bit so it's seated all the way around your bottom lip, because we're going to put the white one in next. That's going to sit above it. Split this, go right in. A little bit of hope and a dream. All right, now that's in. Okay, now we got those 2 in. We're going to go ahead and put the new wiper seal at the very bottom. And we're all back together. Just the way it needs to be. So let's review a little bit. Come over to the light. And we can see you got one rubber wiper seal just past the white retainer, and then you got your other rubber wiper seal there as well. So we'll grease that whole thing next. Alright, so we're going to put some of this dynamic seal grease on the seals. I put on a glove just because my hands are going to get all sorts of greasy and I still got to use them for torque and stuff after. So squeeze some of this out on your finger. And then we're going to go and we're going to line it all up in here. All that new stuff, all the new seals and everything that you just put in. Do a good job of getting that nice and lubed up. So we have a similar process on this side. We got to get this middle rubber off and then the two little spacers above and below it. So this one's a lot easier to get as I say that and lose it. Yeah, nail trimmers for the win. What the heck? Makes life a lot easier. So got bottom. Middle. And the top one we might be able to just separate. That's it. Okay, we'll put the new ones on. We're going to clean that whole surface real quick first and then we'll slide the new ones on. So these two spacer things, they are different diameters. So the thicker one goes towards the top, thinner one goes on the bottom. So we're going to put the thick one on first. Just separate that. Okay, thick one. We'll slide the rubber piece on. Okay. Show it's all sitting nice. And then we'll slide the skinnier piece on the bottom. And that's it. Now we'll grease the whole thing, start putting it back together, add some oil, and keep moving on. We'll do some more of that dynamic seal grease, and we will put it on the area that we just worked in. Cover up all this, get this nice and covered all the way around. Push that all the way back up to the top where it was. And then the air can, we're going to empty about half, a third to half of this packet into the air can first. Then we're going to slide it on and then we'll fill the rest once we've slid it in. Let's take this and we're going to squirt it, about half of it in here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little rubber washers off, put new ones on. Appears to be there's only the one of them on there. I'll double check with my handy dandy pick. Yeah, that's it, just one. Okay, so we'll put the new one on just to say we did it. Now from there, since that's in, we'll go ahead and slide this can back on the shock. There we go. Alright, she's on. Now that she's on, we can squirt the rest of this packet in there. And now we can work on getting this thing to close again. which could be a job on its own. It does take a fair bit of force, so we may end up putting it back in the vise to get it if I can't get it by hand. Or you can use a door jamb. Okay, we're going to put the Schrader core back in. Always rotate left first till you hear a click. We don't cross thread anything. Cross threading this is like a, well, in this case, probably a $300 to $500 mistake. There we go. Excellent. So, we got her. Happy about that. Okay, I'm going to put some pressure in it right now just to make sure I don't hear any air anywhere. Just a foresight, because it would be less fortunate to have to take the whole thing apart because it's not holding air after I've already put it back on the bike. So let's put some air in it and see what happens. So we have it holding at 100 psi. It's been a minute or so, so I feel pretty confident about it. If you wanted to, you could spray soapy water and do like a little bubble test around the edge right here, because that's really your only part where you're losing air. Everything else is pretty well sealed up. So no leaks, and we're good to put it back on the bike. It's a good two-handed thing. There we go. Beautiful. I was concerned. All right. So with that, I'm going to push the threads through, and I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on the threads before I tighten it. The other trick is when you have grease and you put it in on what you're putting on, like that little spacer right there, it'll actually hold it in place for you. So grease kind of acts as an adhesive for a couple minutes. And then slide that up on the other side. You can't see, but it's there. Another little touch of Loctite. That might even been too much. You really don't need much at all with it. And we're going to torque everything too, so. And that's going to be our hold back in a couple minutes. I'll leave it like that so I can get at it nice and easily with the crescent wrench. So I'm going to torque down 11 Newton meters or 97 inch-pounds on both of these. I got my hold back again. I'm going to torque my bottom bolt here to 15 Newton meters or 132 inch-pounds. Once the shock's back on the bike, you're going to fill it to like 100 psi and then sit on it so that way it'll cycle and the positive and negative air chambers will equalize. And then you fill the shock back up to your desired psi. In my case it was like 175. Once that's all done, you're good to go. Go out, ride that bike, enjoy the work you've done. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something like I did. And we will see you next time. Please remember to like and subscribe if you can. Thanks so much.